to order the joint Troy City Council and Troy Family Days Committee to our special meeting for November 14th, 2016. We could have the roll call, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Slater?
Here.
Councilmember Abraham?
Here.
Councilmember Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Henderson?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Here.
Councilmember McCown?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Pennington?
I did get a call from Mayor Pro Tem Pennington that he was stuck in traffic and he thought he might be 10 minutes late, so we won't hold up the meeting, but he should be here shortly. There are one discussion item this evening. C1 is a Troy Family Days Festival discussion, so I will turn this meeting over to City Manager Brian Kishnick.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. This is an update for the City Council and staff on Troy Family Days, and it's an opportunity to, now that we're 2 years into the lease of using city property when they moved from Zion to Town Center and Civic Center Drive. So they have a new management team in place. This is an opportunity for them to discuss that and inform the council. Talk about the financials of the festival. That's always something that we ask for, and with this new management team you have in place, some financials that are pretty detailed thanks to Al Lindsay's work and on short notice. And then sort of get a consensus or feel if we want to partner, how we want to partner, if we don't want to partner with the Troy Family Days and the whole festival. Bless you. So I'm going to turn it over to Doug Teets and let him do the presentation for Troy Family Days.
Doug, why don't you just come and have a seat at the table if you would, please. And if you want to bring somebody with you that's here.
If it goes sour, I'll bring them up. If it's going well, I'm going to take all the credit. So thank you very much. Delighted to be here. So let me give you a kind of a big picture, then we'll get into the nitty-gritty numbers. Troy Family Days started in 1968. This was the 48th year. There was, I think, a one-year skip there around September 11th, and it was kind of a thing that happened. But I think the exciting things that happened this year with Troy Family Days, about 20 to 25,000 people attended. There's not actually a clicker to count, but that's a safe number. The second neat thing, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday set record high carnival and attendance records. And that's, now the kind of confusing thing about this situation, we don't have all 48 years worth of records. We have the last 5 years definitive numbers. And so those are great things. We have a new management team. Al Lindsay stepped in for Tom Kozubski several weeks before the 2016 festival. He did a great job. He reduced expenses, and he was able to unite the team. They delivered the product. All that's great news. Bad news is, looking at the numbers, Troy Family Days is not a great moneymaker. In fact, it's a risky proposition. And if I could steal someone's, gosh, thank you. So on there, Al did a great job of getting all the financials on paper, and these are all backed up against the checkbook and everything. And the important thing to notice here, we had 3 of the 4 best days ever in 2016, and netted out at the bottom line there, $15,000. That's a great thing, and that's what you hope you get when you have 3 of the 4 best days. The bad news is the column next to it, the year-over-year averages. So the 5-year average write-in attendance, and just assuming the same expenses as 2016, you're going to end up losing roughly $2,700. Now, I'm not a big fan of crying wolf, but I'm going to have to say this is a problem, because when your average attendance is a loss, and then if you just look back at 2015, you're going to have, if spending goes up, you're going to have even larger losses. So there are 3 parties that have an interest in Troy Family Days. First one, North Woodward Community Foundation, the C3, that has the money, that handles all the financials of the Troy Family Days, also the financial backers, meaning in 2015, when there was a $30,000 loss, they took the $30,000 loss and worked on that. In the same way, they've looked at the numbers, or let's go through 3 groups. North Woodward, the Troy Family Days Festival Committee, who do all the logistical blocking and tackling the festival. These are great volunteers that many of them spend 4, 5, 6 days there at the festival site, making sure the lines are correct, the electrical's correct, the fencing, yada, yada, is up and going. And candidly, this wouldn't happen, and we're lucky to have people like that in the city of Troy. And then the third group is the city. The city has been wonderful to work with, and Kurt's here and deserves a great deal of praise. All the volunteers have great things to say about Kurt, that he's interested in helping, goes way above and beyond. We really appreciate all the effort, and the success of 2016 wouldn't have happened without you. And the great thing about being the city in this circumstance, we get our comments back, and the comments say something along this line: great festival, loved it, keep it up, City of Troy. So congratulations, you get all the credit with none of the risk. If only all the propositions that came before the city had that situation. So, all that said, I'll cut to the chase. It's not a financially viable situation right now. North Woodward has said they're ready to take a step back, and they want to find a different alternative. The Family Days Committee is interested in continuing it, but when you look at the numbers, it's a hard thing to justify. And so rather than throwing up our hands, we wanted to approach the city and you, the city council, to say, let's find a way to make this continue to get to at least the 50th anniversary. Next year will be 49. So let's look at a collaborative effort to work together. And I don't know what that exactly looks like tonight, and probably this isn't the right time to hash that out. But I think there's a way that working with the city, working with the volunteers that put in so much time in the North Woodward Community Foundation, I think there's a way that we can all work together and have a cooperative agreement. Al, who was just mentioned a couple minutes ago, is on vacation. He would love to be here, and he's bought into this as well. He knows that this has to be something that's working together, so that to mitigate the risk of a very bad year, and then also to make sure it's the best thing for our city. Last point, and then I'll rest, is looking at other cities, always interesting comparables. Canton Freedom Fest, it's an enormous festival down in Canton, about twice the size of Troy Family Days. It's entirely run by the city. Livonia, the Livonia Spree, is an enormous festival, it's got to be 4 times as big. It's a nonprofit group, but the nonprofit has a cash reserve of about a year and a half's worth of expenses, so it's a pretty robust nonprofit. So they're able to operate independently. Sterling Fest, the city of Sterling Heights just cuts a check every year. And I'm not suggesting any of those is the perfect match here, but I think there's a way that we can come to some type of solution, because Troy Family Days the value is not the profit at the end of the year. The value is having it happen, and that's good for a city. And so thank you for the opportunity, and I'll take questions. If they're hard, I'll have other people answer them.
Thank you, Doug. Before questions, Brian, did you want to say anything, or from the city at all, or just open it up here?
I think just open it up. I would just say we've had numerous conversations with Jim and Al and Doug, and different variations of what we could do. But I guess, the first step is to figure out if we even want to go forward and explore options and opportunities. But clearly, during this lease, we made it so that we had a board member, but I think, we've talked about it, I think if we're gonna go forward, we need something really strict, really small finance committee that really oversees this. And quite frankly, Al, I don't wanna keep talking about Al since he's not here, but he did a great, he really is on top of the numbers historically and moving forward. So, that's something we'd wanna talk about. That's all.
And not to talk about Al too, but maybe Doug, you could just talk about Al's background.
Sure.
I think it might be important for everyone to know his background, because it's impressive what he brings to the table. If you remember.
Oh, I do remember. Al was was in the insurance business, has recently retired. He spent has been running the Warren Festival for the last 20 or 25 years. He's also been owned some interest in different vending, concession stand type stuff, so he's very familiar with the industry. And with the sudden transition that happened in 2016, it's only because of Al that 2016 actually came together. It's a high compliment to him that he went through, reconstructed a really clear 2015 financials, went through all the contracts, and as you can see, he cut $37,000 out of the budget in a matter of 6-8 weeks. So it's a real compliment to him, and the city is lucky to have him here he's a resident, but also the Family Day Festival is lucky to have him as their chairman.
I agree. Maybe we should just ask questions, and then the first thing, as City Manager Kishnick indicated, probably the first question is, do we want to continue? So Councilman Baker, did you want to?
Are we addressing that last question, or are we about other questions?
No, let's ask questions first.
Okay. I've looked at some of these numbers, we've spoken a little bit, and I did have a question, I can't remember off the top of my head, but we did pay for fireworks as a council. Was that for this year? Because these numbers reflect that
No, we never pay for fireworks.
I'm sorry, I believe we did approve, we deferred last year's $10,000 payment and also agreed to pay for fireworks by motion, I believe. Am I wrong?
Is that right?
City Attorney Bloom, I think, has a...
I do have a resolution from May 9th of 2016, and it says, resolved that the Troy City Council hereby approves funds for fireworks which are known to be approximately $6,902, deferring $3,098, and reviewing the agreement again after the 2016 Troy Family Days Festival with a joint study session between the Troy Family Days and City Council. A decision on the deferral will be made after the 2016 joint study session.
Stand corrected.
Thank you. That wasn't my problem. So, I mean, I know those numbers they would affect these numbers, as I understand.
Yeah.
But I think to the broader point, I think that shows that we as a council at least have been willing to work with. I mean, it shows kind of where we are, that it means something to our community, and we'd like to figure something out. But I did want to make sure those numbers were right. And I couldn't recall if we actually deferred last year or what we deferred. So thank you for that clarification.
Questions for Doug? Councilman Henderson?
So, I did quick subtraction here as well, and I see $42,000 in cuts that they made in some of the costs. Probably some increases in the 2016 actuals to offset that for a net of $37,000, right? So, had we added in the $10,000 that we deferred, you still would have. I mean, with just the cuts, you would have been able to at least experience a net zero for 2015. Is there any feel for 2014 or 2013? What did those years do? And I see the average for 5-year negative 27.75. But
I don't know the answer to your question about the 2014 numbers, not off the top of my head. But I think your point of that there were significant cuts, I probably deserves some definition of why, how in the world, right? It's kind of one of those things. So there wasn't in 2015, there was a beer tent. And so when you have a beer tent, that means you have to have another tent, more entertainment, more latrines, more fencing, yada, yada. So you eliminate that, and then you look at all the contracts again. That's how you're able to reduce a lot of it. But I don't know what the 2014 number was, if it was 12,000 or 15,000, or what the exact number was. I know we didn't lose money in 2014, though.
because to just finish the point, right? If we would have seen better spending habits, I suppose, in 2015, for lack of a better definition of that, then that number may have been a positive number. So now we're dealing with the city being paid $10,000 plus, maybe a positive figure there, or a break even, and then really good numbers in 2016. So we might even be talking about this for 2017, right?
So I appreciate your optimism that we'll have another record turnout for the second straight year. But in statistics, it always reverts to the mean, right? And that's kind of where these things tend
But
to
look
go.
at the numbers, I mean, you, in 2015, you would have broken even and you would have had about $8,000 less at the gate, right? Less income.
Yeah, so you're right. What I think you're getting at is 2015 spending was out of control.
Out of control, yeah.
Right?
Right.
And so I completely agree with you. I wasn't involved in that, and that's the past. Can't change that. What I can tell you is that the North Woodward Community Foundation is saying, this is a crapshoot every single year. And how can we keep on doing this? And you as a council, I'm imploring you to decide, is this a community value? And if it is, then we need to make decisions. If it isn't, that's fine. We'll hand over the papers to whoever wants to take over, and I'll make sure to take the kids if it happens. It probably won't happen, though.
Councilman Holder? Councilman Holder?
First of all, I love Troy Days, let me just say that. Secondly, I think we need to go into this with our eyes wide open. And you have a year with rain, this costs you tremendously. We've had a year where it rained out and the expenses are still incurred. So I think this discussion, we can sit and look at numbers, and if we're gonna break even or make 5 or 10 or 20 or only lose 5, it is every year a risk, just because of the weather. And sometimes I think we can talk about moving it to a different month, and, let's face it, in Michigan, any weekend of the year is a risk because of the weather. I think it comes down to that question of, is it a quality of life event that we want in our city? And I guess my question is for North Woodward, a board that I respect and what you guys are doing in the community. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm hearing you guys say, we think this is a value-added entity. We're willing to be the C3 in it. We have the volunteers in it. And would you also say that that board is saying, gee, with the city's help, we do think this should continue? Or is there an opinion from that board?
I think the board wants it to happen. I wouldn't be here tonight if we didn't want it to happen. But in the same way, it's kind of a cake and eat it too, right? Taking all the risk, and that's our situation. And so the question is really, I think the value to the community is huge. And if we were to draw up our perfect scenario of, if only we had a C3 that's willing to take a risk, a bunch of volunteers sitting around, well, there's only one missing piece. And I think that's where we're at.
Councilwoman Abraham?
I also value Troy Family Days, or Troy Days as it had once been known. I think this is a quality of life type of event that people look forward to. It's something that defines our community, much like our other quality of life venues, the library, the aquatic center, our community center. I think there's a way to do it, maybe not exactly how we do it today. Just 3 weeks ago, we had a frightful 5K that the city sponsored, and it wasn't intended to raise any money. We were hoping just for it to be cost neutral. And lo and behold, it was so successful that it actually turned a profit, much to, I think, everyone's delight, even though it wasn't the intent. So I think we have clearly a passionate group of people who are willing to do this. I think there's enough support from the community to have this event. I do think there is opportunity to maybe change things, to mitigate some of the risk. Having said all that, I'm not normally in the business of having government run festivals, but it seems like this is something that our community does value. So I'm certainly willing to listen and work with whomever to make something that makes sense for our community.
Any questions for Doug? I'm sure we can talk about some of those things. And my recollection, Doug, is when I met with Al and you and city manager a few weeks ago, we did see the numbers going back to 2011, I think. And they weren't great numbers, and when you looked at them, they had them broken down by day, and you know, sometimes, some years Thursday was a good day, and sometimes Friday was a good day, and sometimes Saturday. It was all across the board. So, points well taken about the risk. And the question is it fair to ask the foundation to put their foundation at risk for the festival? And I don't think that that's really what we should do. I don't remember who all was here when the foundation came to us originally and asked us if they could even be part, you know, of the city. The presentation was that we intend to make some significant money. It was really a money-making endeavor, I think, that was presented.
Right.
And I think that's why we chose to charge $10,000 in rent, because it was presented to us as a moneymaker. Quite obviously, that didn't happen. And maybe that's not the way we should have looked at it. Maybe we should have looked at it the way we are today, as is it important to the community? And I think that's the first question that we all need to think about. Is this something that we want to have in the city? Is this something that we want to continue? That's the first question, and if the question is no, then quite honestly, I think we're finished. So, do we have consensus here at the table that we want to see Troy Days continue? Mayor Pro Tem
Yeah,
Pennington?
kind of late to meeting, I apologize, but I just want to say that, yes, I mean, your answer is, Troy Days is enjoyed by everyone. It was never, I don't think it was ever intended, even when the city had it, it was never a money-making venue. They probably had the ideas of turning it into such, but if that's not the case, the citizens would all want this. I mean, most citizens attend this, and it's just a great thing for the city to have moving forward. So, yeah, we need to make it work well for everyone.
Yeah, and as I said, I just don't think it's fair to ask a foundation to put their foundation at risk. And I think we need to find a way not to put the foundation at risk. I kind of look at it a little bit like what we did for the DDA with the bonds. We took the risk. And I think if the city wants to be a partner in this, we maybe have to be the ones to take the risk and make sure that the foundation doesn't suffer. Because they do all the work. They do all the work, they bring the volunteers, they do everything. And I think I don't think we should ask them to be at risk for this. So, having said that, and it looks like there's consensus to try and make this work, now we have to maybe discuss on how we think that can work and be a partner and help alleviate the risk for them. I know we have a contract, pretty good contract for the city of Troy. And I do know that there's still money owed by the foundation to the city of Troy.
How long was that contract?
It goes until 2020.
It's 5 year.
There's an opportunity to renew it, 2022. And then it can be extended.
It's an 8-year contract.
And there's an opt-out by either party at any time. Basically, I think 180 days, something like that, notice or something like that. 120.
180, sorry.
But I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think we have to get rid of the contract you know, if we're gonna move forward here and maybe rewrite something different. Councilman Baker.
Question, maybe you can answer this, Doug, I'm not sure. Is the foundation looking for us to say, and I'm just speculating, hey, don't charge us the $10,000, that's automatically $10,000 that we don't have to worry about each year? And that might be something that would move the needle a little bit and give them, try another year? Or are they looking for something more of a, you know, we'll guarantee that the foundation isn't gonna lose any money if it happens that, and the city will cover the rest? I mean, do you have a sense of what their opinion is on that?
Yeah, so first we'd love to see the contract changed, right? That's pretty clear. City Troy is our second highest vendor, most expensive vendor. Item number two, what does that, you know, future look like? I think that a group with folks from the city, from North Woodward, and from the Troy Family Days Committee need to sit down and kind of sketch that out. Because once upon a time, I served on this body, and I certainly wouldn't want to sign something where it's, oh yeah, we'll cover the losses. Well, that's a ridiculous plan, right? But I think in the same way, everyone has the same interests. I think, you know, all the folks I'm talking about are all volunteers. They want to see this happen. They don't want to lose their shirt, and they care about their city. So I don't think it's a, hey, we want a no risk. But in the same way, we can have a smart plan where we mitigate and eliminate most risks.
So are we suggesting putting together a small committee to come back to council after trying to put together a plan? Is that what I'm kind of hearing tonight?
Again, I think that's the right idea, rather than try to hash out exactly what all those things are. But I think it's a punch list of here's the 8 or 6 or 4 or 12 things.
But I do think you should hear ideas from council members even tonight.
I brought a pen and no pen.
That what would members be looking for? And Councilman Henderson, did you have something before we get?
Actually, I was gonna go the exact opposite, is, you know, maybe you guys in your brain sessions, download sessions after the event, have a set of ideas that you want to present to us to make this easier and to go into the future.
I at risk of biasing your later suggestions, I think there are things like looking at just down the list, are things like increasing the number of community tents, right? Making an effort to push that. I think there were probably 12, 15 community tents, but getting more community groups engaged. Finding ways where things are happening, good things are happening in the city, where we can showcase them at the festival. The great thing about being at Civic Center, for crying out loud, it's the Civic Center. You know, the library, all these great things are right next door. I think there are also areas where there could be cost savings. I don't know what all those great ideas are. Again, I don't want to bias your thinking.
Yeah, but anytime you negotiate, it's better to hear the other team first.
Well, so I don't view this as negotiating, because we're all aiming for the same goal. I think we should view this as, how can we make sure we have a festival happening in the city?
Right.
And it's not, there's no winner in this, because either we're all gonna lose or we're gonna have a festival, right? And that's, so I'm being upfront with you, because I think that's why the group needs to get together and say, hey, here are ways where we can work together. Because at the end of the day, every mature, real city has something like this. And I think we'll be at a loss if there's no 49th annual Family Days Festival.
Yeah, and just, the thing that jumps out at you right off the bat is sponsorship, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the number one thing that jumps out at me, and I know we can do a better job of that. Councilwoman Horvath.
I agree. And then secondly, maybe I'm backwards, or, all right, what we're talking about is, we have the players. Let's assume that we have agreement, we want the city, the C3, the team. Isn't this a wonderful opportunity to say, okay, here's how we've always done it. Let's clean sheet it and talk about, what does this look like and feel like in Troy in 2016-17. And I'm not saying that we try to make it Disney, a visit to Disney, but how can we reimagine it with our properties, with what we've been doing with Big Beaver, the move across Troy, with, the frightful 5K. It used to be, in the old days of Troy Family Days, Troy Days, police chief, don't get mad at me, but we would shut down Crooks, and we had a parade, and we had both high schools were involved, and we did some amazing things here that have been, there's great ideas from the old, there's from the current, and there's probably stuff that if you put people in a room and fed them a bunch of sugar and some Mountain Dew and said, have at it, dream and scheme, and then pull back and say, this is what we think this could look like. That, to me, is, we're at a nice opportunity to refresh this idea and engage the community in it. And I guess forming a committee like you just, or a sub-team to do that, personally, I'd like to let's do some visioning on it and then, hone ourselves in. That would be maybe I'm crazy.
Sounds like you have a head for your committee.
A lot of vision. I think that's spot on.
Yeah.
And to be respectful of the Troy Family Days Committee that has put so much time and effort, because candidly, there's a wealth of information there.
Yeah.
And to just plumb their minds, because I'm sure they have lists of things, hey, why haven't we ever done it this way? Well, you may be spot on, or we did it this way back in 1978. How come we haven't done it since then?
Right.
Good ideas. I personally, again, going back a few years, this also was known as an international festival, and I met recently with our first Global Troy committee, and the first thing that they said was, we need to have an international festival. So I see a vision of bringing back the international flavor to the festival, where we can combine, maybe we can combine, as Ellen said, different areas that we have into one event, and bring the international festival theme back. We're doing the swearing-in ceremonies, which have become very, very popular. So that's just my 2 cents. But more importantly, I think we need to maybe tonight to discuss the contract and discuss whether we want to put a financial team together, which I think might be more important than anything, to get these numbers back. Are we going to forgive the debt and start from scratch? And keeping in mind that this hasn't really cost the city of Troy any money out of our pocket, so to speak. So
we benefited from it. I mean, community goes and recognizes, like you said, recognizes the city and all the city's done for it. And yeah, I mean, like I used to go when I was a kid, and I took my kids the last 2 years, and it's been a good time. 3 years.
but I'm kind of talking about they're owed $10,000 by the city or whatever. Still, they're $15,000. I'm not sure what 10. That isn't money that the city has expended,
Right.
So to speak. Councilman Harrison.
When we're talking about the contract, how is that affected with the plans for the Civic Center property going forward?
I wouldn't sign a long-term contract.
Well, we already have a long-term
Yeah, it's
contract.
I was gonna say, it's
No, but it's
2022.
180 days
180-day
out,
early
so
termination.
I don't think that's a problem. I think we should be focused on how do you do Troy Family Days with the three-legged stool, if you will, at this site as we know it today, right?
Right, but with the idea that, we've got these grandiose plans, so, okay, we put all this brain power and we make build a better mousetrap, and it's cost effective, everybody's happy with it, and then 2 years from now, guess what, they're breaking ground down the street, we're not doing this anymore. So, what is a good plan B?
I think a good plan B is to have a backup location.
Yeah, which is difficult.
Which is difficult,
Yeah.
but.
As they found out when they came to the city, right, Jim?
Right, that's exactly right. The issues back then were, I'm Joe Semity, for those who don't know me, I'm the president of the North Forward Community Foundation. Been here as a resident for 31 years.
Is he okay there?
And one of the
Would you-
things that,
Joe, would you come up to the table, please?
one of the main issues of leaving Bowling Park, a lot of complaints about when it rained, the mud, slop, parents didn't like it, kids were messy, it was difficult for us to manage to it with all the parking, because the cars tore up the grass and what have you, so that had to be repaired. The Zion piece looked really nice, so we were able to do a lot of good things, because of this, we could have the parking on asphalt, which was super. But when we got caught in some rain in the last year of doing it there, it was a mess. We were bringing in hay. In the end, it cost the foundation another $3,000 just to repair the grass that was there. Not to mention all the hay we brought in, paid for that, to have to be transported at the last minute. So the logistics of that is one of the reasons that if you look at Bowling Park, you may need to look at it from changing the park a little bit to allow it to be not what it was in the past. What the benefits of the Civic Center area was, it's all in asphalt, it's all on concrete. It's here. It's something where, and I don't know what your plans are for the Civic Center. I've read that you've got an architect doing some plans there. I don't want to get to that, but as long as you have it the way it is today, it's an excellent site to do it at. The only negative side of it, if you were driving down Van Dyke and Sterling Heights or Warren, you'd see the festival, and it would draw attention. I go down I-75 or down Big Beaver or down Livernois, I don't see the festival. There's not enough attention to draw the people in when they're driving by. Hey, Mom, Dad, can we go do that? You know.
Let me jump to the heart of the matter. I don't think you're building the Civic Center by next summer, and maybe not the summer thereafter. This is gonna happen, if it's gonna happen next summer.
Yeah.
Let's survive 1 year, and then we can deal with whatever you do from there.
And I was just gonna caveat on that. Well, first of all, have a higher Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
Well, let me just, if I could just comment on that. One of the reasons that they didn't want to be on the freeway is they didn't want to attract, this is a Troy family event. They didn't want, they purposely didn't pick the Oakland Mall for that reason. So there's two sides to that.
But Councilmember Henderson, I was just going to say, this might be the best area, once it is, if it were developed, just like, I hate to compare Royal Oak, but, a lot of those streets are utilized, and it just ends up working. Could be the best thing for it.
Right.
Birmingham also has a festival in their downtown. It's feasible. It would be reconfiguring things and so forth.
Well, if we think this is important to the city of Troy and the community, we'll find a way to keep it going. So I think that's the least of our importance right
I
now.
would totally agree with that statement. Really what you have before you is the question, do you want to keep it going? Because without one of the three legs on that stool, it's going to fall over. And we really need your support. If the community needs something that this is what you believe, I believe the community would like to see happen, we've got to come together and figure out a way to get it done, because the other two legs can't hold it anymore.
I think we all understand that, and I think there was consensus here that we are going to, we want to keep it, we want to move forward. So we have about 10 more minutes, and I think we should get towards nuts and bolts just a little bit. Councilwoman Horry.
Well, the nuts and bolts question on the table is about the forgiveness of the,
That's one, certainly the first thing that we should probably talk about.
I guess I'm inclined to, let's clean sheet this and move forward.
I would second that. I mean, it's gonna change year to year. They could be weathered out next year, and then we're talking, we're back talking about the same thing, so.
Councilman Baker.
I think, we were asked about this in the spring, about forgiving this debt, and one of the big issues for us at the time was, okay, well, can you show us your numbers so we can get a better picture? And so we're provided at the time, no fault of yours. But having the numbers in front of us now, I think, has been a big help and gives us an opportunity to look at it with a much different perspective. And, I'm not in favor of rewriting contracts or just, that are gonna seem one-sided in a sense, and forgiving money is, but it's really not when you look at the big picture and what we're doing for the community, and the fact that it doesn't cost us, it's not,
That's the
we didn't
important
incur
part.
$10,000 worth of costs. I mean, arguably maybe some wear and tear on roads or something, I don't know, but that's, the city's gonna have that anyway. But, I lost my beautiful train of thought there.
No, I agree, that's the important point with me, is this isn't really money out of our pocket.
Right, right. But yes, I think we should look at that as a good starting point. And then, obviously, I mean, if we're gonna forgive it, then we need to talk about the contract as a whole. And I know we can't vote on anything, but here, but.
We would have to bring back another resolution to forgive the 10,000, I would assume,
Yes.
at this point.
Yeah, you need to deal with 2015 and 2016 as well. So you would need a resolution at a regular meeting dealing with both of those. And, certainly, I mean, there are some pretty good bones to this agreement, so you don't have to just completely wipe out the agreement. I mean, there are lots of things that talk about, insurance and things like that. So, again, Clean Slate is great with the money part of it. And again, happy to hear what those ideas are and incorporate those ideas into a new agreement and one that would hopefully be acceptable to everybody.
So the consensus to start from scratch with prepare a resolution for the next council meeting? Okay. City Manager Kishnick, are we going to put together a subcommittee here? Is that where we're going here?
You know me, I just think it's so important to
Yeah.
have. It was easy, I think Councilmember Baker just said it. Once we have the numbers, it's a lot easier to wrap your head around why they're saying what they're saying, why we're saying what we're saying. If we have a small committee, I think it works a lot better, and that's how it came to this point. Doug stepping in and then meeting with us.
And I think
That's what I think.
legally, we can't have a council member on that committee, correct?
Well, you cannot have a council committee, a council subcommittee. I'd have to look about having a council member on that committee. It's certainly not something that's allowed under statute, but,
I think I tried this once before and was told that we couldn't, but,
You don't think you want one of this?
but did you have some ideas, Brian, as to, I know you were talking about a financial team, and
I think it's the three of us and Al and
Tom?
us. Pardon me?
Do we want Tom or somebody else from the city, or not? Leave that up to you.
Yeah, I'll work with Tom, that doesn't take his time. But, we can, when it's a committee like that, we can get together as we need. Meet with Tom, meet with Mark, meet with, whomever outside of the organization. I'm comfortable with that.
From the foundation standpoint, if there's a resolution at the next council meeting that passes to forgive and start from scratch, I think that's a good faith effort from the city to the foundation that we're willing to get this done.
Yeah, absolutely.
And be a partner. Councilman Henderson.
Something that Doug and I talked about, as you were laying out some of the ideas here, it's a kind of a cash flow thing.
That's true as well.
Because you have at the end of the days, Troy Family Days, you get, let's say you win and you have $5,000 in the bank. Now you've got the entire year that you're trying to pay for vendors, but, prepay for all of this stuff, and you haven't even started collecting from, any committee. So it can become a real difficult cash flow scenario.
So to that end, there will be a aggressive fundraising aspect to this coming year through sponsorships, and then also reaching out to the community as a whole. For crying out loud, if 48 years doing the same thing and there's not any people that are a fan, yeah, there's tons of people that are a fan. Roop Raj the other night, the leadership Troy was talking about how great it was to be, go to Troy Family Days. So to hit your point on the head, it is a cash flow issue. there were calls at 10 o'clock at night to run and go get a check from, you know, the North Woodward account to quick cover some expenses. And that's not a good business model and not a happy world to live in.
I know there was some discussion about increasing the fee to get in, and there are all some good ideas. You know, $2 to get into the festival is a pretty good deal. So would $5 be a good deal,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So,
30,000 people.
I think we want to dial in the folks that, on the Family Days Committee and see what they have heard or thought, because that's the purpose of the Finance Committee. To
Right.
kind of come together with some ideas, but I think I've heard that from multiple people about, you know, what's the right price point?
what's the right price point? And, you know, what we want to do is try and entice families back, where the whole family stays and they just don't use it as a babysitting afternoon to drop their kids off. That's why we want to keep the family there, you know, find reasons to keep the whole family there. Councilwoman Abraham.
It's just a point I wanted to make. I know we've talked a lot about sponsorships. I do get a little bit concerned about relying so heavily. There's a lot of festivals, there's a lot of events in the fall timeframe. You've got Troy Days, now we'll have our Frightful 5K, which was fantastic. The Historical Society has their Scarecrow Glow. The Nature Center has their I can't think of the wine event that they have just last week. Leadership Troy has their banquet. All of this is within a 6-week period of time, and very often, all of those. So I do get a little bit concerned that we may be tapping into maybe some of the same groups. So one of the things I guess I would ask is maybe looking for a little diversification.
I absolutely agree. In a city of 80,000 people, there's
Yeah.
no reason in the world why we should be going back to the same 150 people, right?
Exactly.
And I think this is a sort of wide appeal event that could reach out to a lot of businesses and corporations, and, you know, ideas like, you know, ask for a couple ideas like naming rights, or, you know, hey, I love to sell. You know, we'll figure out something. If you have a big enough check, we can, you know, you can have the Ferris wheel for the night if you'd like, so. And we'll bring in a taller Ferris wheel, so. Exactly.
Councilwoman Hodder.
I guess in the spirit of the brainstorming, since you do not want council members on such a committee, I don't think we'll do it from here. You know, when you're talking about those different things, maybe there's an opportunity to integrate that in, you know. You look at the Thanksgiving Day Parade in Detroit, and they do the turkey trot that morning, and the night before, there's the black tie event, that is a fundraiser. You know, maybe we can get creative, and instead of these amazing essential entities in our community that are off fighting, off doing it on their own, there's an opportunity for collaboration and maybe some working together with those entities as well. I don't know what that is, but I think it's worth kicking around for 30 minutes one afternoon brainstorming. And then you start to integrate these things and tie them together, and at the risk of using an overused word, the synergies could be great. They could be really beneficial, so that's one more thought.
Just one last comment, and your comment about the international festival aspect of it made me think about maybe there's an aspect of partnering with this Troy School District. I don't know if that had been done in the past. Maybe that's something that we want to do going forward, particularly if we do have more of an international flair to it. I think that would be a great way to really integrate the schools with Troy Family Days, because, I mean, they're really the ones that are coming to this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's remember, we have more than Troy's schools in the city.
Yes, Avondale,
Yes.
Birmingham, Warren.
We just have to remind ourselves that we have.
International
I
Academy.
know, we have, well, we seem to sometimes forget.
I know.
Um,
Shame on me.
No, I'm just, you know,
You're wearing your Athens colors, I know it.
It's not you, Edna. He's directed that right at me during this event. I forgot. I was,
No.
anyway.
It's all
Anyways.
good, it's all good.
It's all good. It's all good. Did the foundation need anything else tonight to?
No, I think we've got marching orders, number one, to watch in anxious anticipation for the resolution next meeting. And then item two is to look forward to working with Brian and team to have a finance committee and come up with some ideas and roll out a game plan for 2017.
Do we have a timeline at this point that you're looking at, or not? Not yet.
Yeah, I would say late January, could probably say first early deliverables. As far as,
I would just keep them.
give me at least an hour to come up with a plan. So as far as timelines go. 'Cause
As you know, if there's going to be budgeting, March is an important month for us.
I hope Brian's probably familiar with those times, so I'll defer to him.
Any other questions or anything else from the foundation?
My understanding is that there'll be a resolution of some sort at your next meeting. And then from there, we can probably start getting this committee together and making those plans so that you have some numbers to come back with.
We don't need to do anything with the contract.
The resolution will tie in the contract, and it will, it will explain that this is, it's required under the contract, but yet the city council's waiving it, so I'm sure we can work together on the resolution. Yeah.
Sounds good. No other comments? Does anyone in the audience wish to speak on this item this evening? Taking
And that, Bob Preston,
Yeah, I know Bob.
Boston serves on the Troy Family Days
He's
Committee.
taking copious notes.
Yeah, more than you do.
Thank you. It was an important meeting for I know, for the foundation and for the city too. So thanks for putting this together. We are adjourned.
Thank you.